think Seth's hanging out in the Zoom room. Seth's the chairman and CEO of Lightbridge Corporation. He's also the chairman of the American Nuclear Society's International Council. Lightbridge is a developer of advanced nuclear fuel technology, one of the longest-standing publicly traded advanced nuclear companies on Nasdaq. He's hanging out in the Zoom room with us this morning. Let's see if he's there. Seth, can you hear me?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
There he is. Yes, we can hear you. Good morning. Thanks so much for coming on.
Good morning. Great to be on.
Well, I'm looking at everything, and I'm like, well, nuclear reactors, we got one brewing right here in Wyoming. What do you think of this Kemmerer power station that's going on here in the state?
Well, I think that's a really good thing. That's a TerraPower natrium reactor, and that's a new kind of advanced reactor. It's good to see some construction of something new. They've, of course, got NRC approvals for what they're doing. And it's sort of an old nuclear fuel technology with an innovative new nuclear reactor designed around it. And we're only going to get to a lot of new energy at affordable costs in abundance if we start building and see which of them can be done the best. And this is the first out of the gate for an advanced reactor getting built in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about why nuclear power is getting a renewed attention. These small reactors, what's the difference? I mean, obviously smaller is probably easier to build, maybe easier to maintain. What's happening here?
Yeah, I think you got it exactly right. The smaller ones are also faster to build, and time is money because you don't get any revenue till after they're built. And one of the big knocks on nuclear has been in how long it takes to build a reactor. So small reactors also potentially can be modular, have a lot of them built in factories or shipyards, so build them in large numbers.
Yeah. I mean, finally a renaissance of nuclear. Why all of a sudden? What's the single factor driving this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors, and one is that there's just such enormous power demands, and a lot of it is by industries, including data centers, that need reliable, constant power that reactors are particularly good at providing. The reactors also will free up America's natural gas for exports to countries that don't want to import gas from Russia or rely on gas coming through the Strait of Hormuz. And nuclear can be done without relying on other countries. We can develop in the U.S. everything we need for nuclear. We don't need to import like we do for other energy sources from China or anywhere else. We're very reliant on rare earths and other materials from China for wind and for solar that were not in nuclear.
Yeah, because the one here, it began construction in April of this year. Expected completion target around 2030. So these smaller reactors, I mean, we're always about the now. You mentioned the Strait of Hormuz. I was just looking at that this morning. What's going on? Is it open? What's happening? I mean, we're seeing gas prices fluctuate daily. What's the speed of these? I mean, these smaller reactors, are we looking at 3 or 4 years? What's the turnaround?
Yeah, so the one in Kemmerer isn't so small. I'd say it's more mid-size, and I'd say it's going to take longer for the first one. And you have people doing welding and all sorts of crafts and trades that they haven't done before. But as they do more, that will speed up. And one of the good things about nuclear is you could literally have years of nuclear fuel on the site of the reactor. So you really can't cut it off the way you can other energy sources. If coal or natural gas stop getting delivered through trains or pipelines, the plant stops within a day, or in some cases immediately with natural gas. And with nuclear, you can really count on the reliability of it running. And a lot of these new plants will run for 80 to 100 years. So that's something you can really bank on and build industry around.
Yeah, it's incredible times here in Wyoming. You mentioned data centers. we don't know what's going on with that. We're thinking, I mean, there's as many as like 60 or 90. It's insane what's on the table. We also have the nuclear reactor here in Wyoming. What do you think is going to happen here, especially in the state of Wyoming in the next few years?
Well, if the state welcomes new energy sources, including, more reactors, I think that can attract industry. It used to be a lot of factories and other industrial facilities would compete for where do you get the biggest tax break, where are we going to go to build this automobile assembly plant? And now it starts with, can you guarantee us the power at a reliable cost for decades? And if you can't, we're not going, no matter how big a tax break we get. But if you can, then you're very much in the running. So a state like Wyoming that does not have tremendous power needs now compared to other states, but is demonstrating an ability to deploy a lot of power, could attract high energy needed industries that often come with higher paying jobs and good jobs for the people of the state. And I just think that it's just incredibly important also to prevent surging electric bills in the future, to have abundant power. In the end, this is going to have to be dealt with supply, and just a lot of supply of power will keep the price of power much from going up.
Yeah, you just kind of answered my next question. We're chatting with Seth Grae, the chairman and CEO of Lightbridge Corporation. We're chatting nuclear here because, yeah, these smaller units, I mean, this would change the game for U.S. power grids. One, making power a lot more efficient and also lowering costs. That's essential.
Right. That's the whole point. Lowering cost and at least preventing costs from going up, and doing it in a way where there's abundant power for the people, for the small businesses, and for attracting new businesses, new employers, modern industries. Look, not just data centers, but there's now electric arc furnaces for steel production. There's all kinds of industries that need a great deal of power, that want reliable power, that nuclear is particularly good at providing. And also a reactor like the Natrium at Kemmer is also good not just at providing electricity, but high temperature, high quality steam or process heat for industry. So that's very good for a lot of factories, for producing all sorts of things. So um, you could have the same plant provide electricity and steam. So you could have an industrial facility that uses both, and the electric power can also be. And in some places, you could have what's called district heating, where the heat coming off the reactor directly is used for heating in the town. And that's something that's possible too.
Yeah. Seth's the chairman and CEO of Lightbridge Corporation. Lightbridge works on advanced nuclear fuel. We hear some of the people, people against this nuclear reactor. Well, they're not safe. What if, something happens? Well, your company has been working on this. What's the solution? Where are we going where we're changing the fuel itself to make these reactors safer, more efficient? What are you guys doing?
Well, I think nuclear and aviation have a lot of analogies. And how safe is it to get into this thin metal tube and go miles in the air at hundreds of miles per hour? And the answer is it's the safest part of your day. And the reason is there's people who work very hard at making it safe and at making it the safest part of your day, from the people in the industry to the regulators. And that's how it is with nuclear. It's an industry that literally has never had anyone die of anything nuclear, of anything radioactive in the history of the industry. When you talk about civilian power, making power for people and businesses, no one has ever died from radiation in the history of that industry in the United States. And it's such a strong safety culture that just in terms of people getting injured, like trip and fall, it's the lowest there is. Everyone's so careful in this industry. So these reactors are going to be extremely safe. I would have no problem living next to a reactor. I visit several reactors. I have no problem if my kids visit a reactor any more than if they go on an airplane with me. And I can understand that people can be concerned about new technologies, about nuclear technology. But like aviation, this really, really is safe. If you fly to go visit a reactor, it's only those parts in between, traveling between the airport and the reactor, that you got to be really careful.
Yeah, my wife hates flying. We have to tell her that every time. It's safer than driving. Come on.
Yeah.
It's all perception. I mean, how much of the current nuclear acceleration is driven purely by AI and what's going on right now?
Yeah, that's not because all of this started before AI took off a few years ago. Like the reactor and camera was designed, well before then. But it's in many ways helping now. So, for example, it is often the case that a company would submit thousands of pages of technical data to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the NRC would take 6 months to sort through it and decide whether to accept the package for a licensing application. And now it's possible with AI learning on everything the NRC has ever done to speed that up. So I think the NRC will start doing things like that. It's possible to have AI assisted design, of course, AI assisted operations, but this is a very human centered industry where people are very highly skilled. I think you could have AI with autopilots replace people on planes, but people like having pilots. You could have robots, but people like having flight attendants. And so this is an industry where I think it's very important and reassuring that the people are fully capable of doing everything and are there and are handling, watching over the automated systems.
Yeah. We're chatting with Seth Grae about nuclear reactors this morning. I mean, especially President Trump. It was like the space program. What are China and Russia doing? How can we keep going? How do we compare right now? What are they doing? What are we doing? What's going on there?
Yeah. So China and Russia are very much focusing on deploying nuclear in their countries and exports. And Russia's focusing more on exports than China is. And these are reactors that could develop 100-year relationships with countries they export to in terms of purchasing fuel from them and services, and in many cases, military protection around the facilities. And very often they don't demand the highest standards that the Americans do in non-proliferation and safety. So we think it's important that Americans compete and win overseas. We think these new technologies will be very helpful, but Russia and China will be tough competitors. We think it's a lot better to have America, as your energy provider than Russia or China. Have shown that they can be very bad actors in the world and use energy as negotiation, cut off gas supplies or other things from Russia. So, I think these new technologies, these very safe technologies, will help with American exports.
We're chatting with Seth Grae. He's the chairman, CEO of Lightbridge Corporation. Where's Lightbridge thinking? Where are we going to be 5-10 years down the road?
Well, most of our work is based at Idaho National Laboratory. So we get a lot of people from Lightbridge going into your state. And what we're doing there is we're testing advanced nuclear fuel, and we're working very closely with utilities that are advising us about bringing this fuel to the existing reactors and then new ones. And what we're going to be doing is having this demonstrated in the current reactors and then rolled out commercially in the current reactors. We're right now using facilities at Idaho National Lab, both to produce samples of the fuel and test it in a research reactor there. But we're going to be deploying a pilot plant to make the first fuel for commercial reactors, and then a large and expandable commercial fuel manufacturing facility. So I think you're going to see the Lightbridge fuel rolling out and hopefully becoming the standard in power generation and creating the energy in reactors, because this fuel will produce more power from the same reactor at a lower cost per unit of electricity produced. And it will allow the reactor to have a higher capacity factor to run at full power more of the time, because the fuel will run longer in the reactor between refuelings, and will even enhance the safety of the reactors. So this is really the first and only truly new nuclear fuel being developed in many decades. Lightbridge is the only company that decided to do this. We've done well on the Nasdaq, and we think this is going to be a very good next several years for the company.
Wow. Yeah. They're on Nasdaq. LTBR is Lightbridge Corporation. Besides the one in Kemmer, is there more in the States? Are we it? Is there? I mean, you guys are in Idaho. Where are other reactors around the country?
Yeah, so Idaho has several small ones that are being tested and demonstrated. And there's one in Utah. There's some in Texas, and Texas Abilene University is building a research reactor. There were 2 new large reactors finished in Georgia in the last several years. There are several utilities looking at a combined order for 10 large reactors.
Wow.
There are reactors being deployed up in the Pacific Northwest for powering data centers, and along the Texas Gulf Coast for powering some of Dow's chemical plants. So Wyoming's really at the leading edge here, but there's many more coming.
Yeah. So that's good. We're not the only guinea pig out there. So
Oh, no, you're not a guinea pig. What you're doing is based on a fuel that ran at Idaho National Laboratory very safely for decades.
yeah. So listen to that, Wyoming citizens. So Seth, the chairman and CEO of Lightbridge Corporation, Seth, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Great to be with you, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you. Let's take a quick time out. We'll be back right after this.